systems.
So good morning, everybody. I do hope that more people will join us. Otherwise, this is such a big and awesome room that I was hoping that it would be totally filled, right? So, but it's not yet, but people are still coming in. So we have about an hour. So that means you have to go and listen to us for about an hour. And this is a talk called Flow. And the subtitle of it is The Official Worst Software Development Methodology in History. That is quite an awesome achievement because there's lots of terrible software development methodologies out there, right? So we're going to try to present to you one that is even worse, right?
Yes.
Cool.
It's a hard challenge. We also have Scrum.
Yes, and safe.
Yes.
And waterfall. Lots of nice stuff, right? So, yeah, let's get started, right?
Yeah.
So, let's first do a short introduction. And this is me. My name is Sander. I'm what I call an independent dad. That means I have 3 kids that I try to raise. Well, my ex also does a lot of that. But and I do speak every now and then. I write a little bit every now and then. I'm sort of writing a new book, which some of this comes back into. I like to travel. This is actually my 7th time here in Krakow. So it must be one of the cities I visited the most, actually, and I love Krakow. So I'm a freelance. I'm a serial CTO, as I call it. I like to work for companies that have some issues, and I try to help them solve that. I train people a little bit. I'm a software architect, and mostly I'm a programmer. I figured out recently that my first lines of code go back to 1978. So who was born before that? Well, that's the thing, right? I've been writing code for 44 years, and I still like to write code every day. So that's me.
Yeah.
So.
The slide wasn't hidden. Can you go to 4?
What?
Never mind.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, it's the wrong version. Okay, that's a surprise. So this is me. It's still me. I'm Kim. I started on the business side, actually. I moved into IT about a decade ago, I guess. I have been a CIO at various companies, and I, maybe especially because I wasn't born into IT, I kind of was fed up with the fact that I had to make architectural decisions while other people were much better at that than I was, and had to make investment decisions where also other people were much better. So I started as a CIO, and at a certain moment I really stopped believing in the concept of traditional management, in IT at least. So I tried to find something else, and I came across this lovely company called Schubert Fittes, is where I work right now. It's a company without managers, ever. It only runs on contextual leadership. The best expert in the room is the person who leads the conversation, and I really love working there. What we do is we deliver mission-critical IT environments for customers who really need to be who really need a working environment, basically. So banks or postal companies or supermarkets, if they fail, people will notice and they will hit the news, basically. Other than that, I have 2 kids. We are partners, so together we have 5 kids. Leaves little time for hobbies, but we do like to travel once every time. Yep. Well, basically that's me, I guess.
Yeah, good. So let's get the show on the road, right? So we're going to do a little bit of history on software development methodologies. And probably, as you all know, there's this thing called waterfall, right? Who of you, by the way, is in a waterfall project? Does that still exist even? Oh, cool. Are you even there to raise your hand? That is extremely cool. Thank you very much. So waterfall is almost gone, right? So sort of like all of the agile stuff has sort of replaced it. And the interesting thing is, if you look at waterfall, it originated in a white paper, and that is this white paper. It's called Managing the Development of Large Software Systems. And it was written in 1970. So remember, that is way before most of us were born. Actually, I was 3 years old, so I didn't read it until 3 years later, probably. But and this white paper, written by a guy called Winston Royce, sort of tried to investigate what would be a good software development methodology. Because at that point, there were very few, or actually no, software development methodologies. So we put together this white paper, and this is actually one of the best white papers in the industry. And it has this picture in it. You all recognize this picture, right? You do? Well, this is basically what waterfall is like. Basically, it says you have all these stages, and you only execute them once, and when you're done, you move on to the next stage. And that is not done in iteration. It's just a one-off way of doing this, right? So you do analysis where you do requirements once, and then when they're totally finished and agreed up and signed off, you go to the next stage called analysis, and you do some analysis, and then you do design, and then you write the code, and then you test the code, and then it goes into production forever and ever and ever. Of course, we all know this doesn't really work. And the interesting thing is, in 1970, Winston Royce also knew that this doesn't work. Because in the white paper, the next picture is actually this picture. And he actually says in this white paper in 1970, he says, well, look, hopefully the iterative interaction between the various phases is confined to successive steps. He actually says, wait a minute, if you're at one of these stages and something is off or you learn something new, you should be able to go back to a previous stage or maybe even multiple previous stages and actually revisit and go again, and et cetera, et cetera. That is iterations, right? This is 1970. None of us actually did this because most of the companies stuck to this particular picture. They're like, oh yeah, we understand this, we can do this, we can make software development methodologies and other methodologies as well that actually implement this. The fact that it didn't work, nobody realized that, right? By the way, the reason it's called waterfall is because it sort of dripples down. The only reason he put these boxes from the top left to the right bottom is that word processors at that point in time in 1970 could not get all these boxes in one line. That's the only reason we have waterfall, right? This is really terrible. And if you read the document really well, it also says, note that it is simply the entire process done in miniature to a timescale that is relatively small with respect to the overall effort. He is actually saying, listen, the best thing you can do is take feedback, learn from that, and start working it again. Iterative software development in 1970. If we would have understood that at that point in time, it would have saved us a lot of frustration and a lot of money too. So that was waterfall, right? And then, now not all of a sudden, but after years and years of going through, slowly going through shorter iterations like 6 months, 4 months, 3 months, 2 months, 6 weeks, 4 weeks, 2 weeks, we went into what is called Agile, right? Now you're probably all in Agile projects, whatever that may be, right? Because there's not really a good definition of it. But the thing is with Agile is, when we started doing this, and I actually was really early with this, like late 90s, and we went into really short iterations, and then the word Agile appeared in 2001, and this is what most people thought Agile was, for quite some time. I still remember talking at events in 2001, 2002, and people just walked out of the room when you tried to explain this. Like I had the CEO of, I think it was Sony or something, that just literally walked out of the room. He said, well, this will never work. And look at where we are now, 20 years later, right? We are all doing this, actually. It's
and
quite
he was
nice.
right.
He was right. It doesn't really work, actually. But yeah, we didn't figure that out until years later, right? So this is what most people think Agile is. This is, of course, Scrum, right? This is a 14-page booklet that actually contains all the wisdom in the world. And everybody just listen to what is in it, right? But it basically says, oh, you have these sprints, sort of iterations, and you go through it in a daily cycle with a stand-up, and then you have a shippable, potentially shippable product increment, basically, is what it was called. And then everybody started doing Scrum. And everybody thought that Scrum equals Agile. It doesn't. Also, Agile does not equal Scrum either. It's actually two different things. And then what you see is that over time, people from the original Agile community, they were like, yeah, this is dead already, right? It's like we see quotes like this, like Dave Thomas saying, well, unfortunately, I think it's proven me right. The word Agile has been subverted to the point where it is effectively meaningless. And what passes for an Agile community seems to be largely an arena for consultants and vendors to hawk services and products. So it's the consultancies that actually took hold of it and and identified ways to make lots and lots of money from it, right? Because, yeah, well, that's basically what we consultants do. And then you go to these agile conferences. I can actually recommend not going there, but if you do, you see stuff like this, right? It's like quotes. Actually, these are quotes from actual agile conference. Like, make sure you don't miss the agile elephant versus the waterfall elephant in the lobby. What on earth is that? I really have no idea what this means. During this session, we are going to discuss the happiness index of projects. The what? Can we just write code or something? Or what? Add ready for celebration before done column in your Kanban board. I don't really like this, actually. And then our good friend Alan says, he says, more and more, I'm coming to see that the term agile as both unnecessary and self-destructing. So that's where we are now, right? Agile has become to mean do part of Scrum badly and use Jira. So he suggests, well, maybe we should just drop this thing and move on, right? And then the question is, where do we move to?
So we have the answer. So we are going the wrong way.
Yeah.
Why is that?
Because you have a new clicker.
Oh, yes. Sometimes the answer is so simple. So why another methodology? Well, that's actually quite simple. We have done extensive research and we found this interesting correlation. We're both in consultancy, so the longer a project takes, the more money we make. So what if we would make a methodology that make our projects last as long as they possibly can? So that was a nice idea. Then we thought, well, how can we sell that to the world? Well, basically, it's already sold. So there's Agile, there's Waterfall. And there was actually a lot of inspiration in all the methodologies that are out there. So we thought, well, let's just steal what we can, because, well, that's what we do in IT, right? And then the first question we asked ourselves, it's the very hardest question when you start a new methodology, is, well, basically, what will be the name of our methodology? We thought long and hard. A lot of PO came in, beer, right? And first of all, we need Japanese words. So Kaizen, Kanban, Obeya, Origami. Origami is the art of tearing off Post-its. And we need to end with cracy, like holacracy, sociocracy, idiocracy. And maybe we need also to let it start with a D, like continuous discovery, disappointment, or continuous disagreement. And also we need something with #no and less yes. So no ops, no projects, no estimates, all real movements. No SQL, no testing, no code. And maybe something like serverless, pointless. And of course, we need something as a service, like SaaS, IaaS, PaaS, testing, and why not X as a service, like everything you can imagine as a service. And we thought, well, maybe MAS, methodology as a service. But in the end, we came up with Flow because it fits so nicely on stickers. And that was the primary requirement. So, for instance, we will be introducing this sticker. This is your first level when you become a certified Flow resource. Then you get this sticker. And then when you're advanced, you can say to other people, well, I'm going with the Flow. So then you're next level, right? And then you also can do the hipster version if you will write front-end code. And you can feel the Flow. So that will be even when you go to advanced level 2. And you can say to other people, well, you're just going with the flow, I'm feeling the flow. And in the end, you can surrender to the flow. And all of this because we will have this sticker on our laptop.
Yes. That's really good, right? So the next question was, what are we going to put in this methodology? So remember, it has to be set up in a way that we can lengthen our projects to make tremendous amounts of money for the rest of our lives. Because that's what we do as consultants, right? So the first thing that came to our mind is, we'll keep sprints. And you might remember, what? Sprints are good, right? No, sprints are not good. Sprints are just a thing to do mini projects in a short time scale. That's what people do, right? You go off into this sprint planning meeting and you do t-shirt sizing, or you do story points, or whatever useless technique there is, and then you sort of do a mini project and you try to deliver by the end of the sprint. That was all nice in, like, say, 2002, 2003, but technology has moved on beyond that, right? My current client, we actually deliver in production continuously, like 20, 40, 60 times per day, as fast as we can, right? So what's the point of still having sprints? Sprints are slowing you down, actually, if you do continuous delivery or continuous deployment, which is one step further, right? So that means if you put sprints in, we'll put lots and lots of sprints in there so we can actually see that, well, basically it slows us down. And the nice thing is, I took some charts from a project, actually a project in Belgium, actually, that said, well, here's the project, and every sprint we do the same thing, right? We estimate the amount of work in whatever, story points or t-shirt sizing or whatever we do, and then we put it into the graph, and then by the end of the sprint, it's all done, right? That is the ideal sprint. This never happens, of course. I've seen so many sprints in the past 20 years that all were considered red sprints. There was one of my clients, actually, we named those red sprints when they don't make the work, right? Because they're stupid, they cannot estimate. That's the thing. I said, well, yes, we can estimate, but not the things you want us to do, because we've never done them before. So that's good, let's keep that in, right? And then you can see sprint after sprint, they didn't make the work. So the thing, what happened here is that the project manager, yes, they still had a project manager, that said, well, these stupid developers, they can never do what they promised to do. And we know we cannot, because it's a hard thing to do, because we are in the unknown unknowns, right? And that means that if you keep sprints in, you found a mechanism to actually delay a lot of work, because, well, you never get around to it, so you have to put it in the next sprint, and then more work comes in, and you get slower and slower and slower until it actually stops you from delivering anything, basically, right?
Yeah, so we have to keep that. And what we also have to keep is autonomy. So there's this big principle, there's 12 principles after the Agile Manifesto. It doesn't really only have 4 lines. And one of those principles is that they believe that teams can create or choose their own architectures and design and patterns and way of organizing best themselves, so not the manager. So that's why we need autonomy. But let's see what works and let's see what doesn't. Well, basically, we want autonomy, well, we want to keep it on a leash, because then we get lots and lots of conversations about autonomy. So our teams can be autonomous, but well, they don't get to hire people, just like at most companies, because, well, you never did that before and you're not really equipped to do that. You also don't learn when you never do it, right? And you don't get to fire people, because that's really hard. You also don't get to do any appraisals because, well, you're not a manager. And you also don't get to decide what work you work on. So we'll give you a product owner and he'll decide what you can work on because, well, we don't trust our teams to know that. And also you don't get to spend real money because money is also very valuable. So yes, you get autonomy, but we decide what's on the backlog. We will decide who is on what team. You don't get to switch team yourself. We decide what tools you're using because we know best, because we never code. We also decide when you have meetings, and we decide, but you do get to decorate your workspace.
Yay!
So yeah, knock yourself out. This is Zappos. And this is how it looks like. Who doesn't want to work here, right? I mean, this is the way to come into flow. And also, if you want, you can play ping pong on the ping pong table whenever you want, but just
mandatory even.
Not between 9 and 5.
Yeah. By the way, I only hire people who are really good at ping pong. So. Yeah.
So this is me in a job interview, and I was in a ball pit. So it really feels like mandatory fun. So definitely we have to keep that. Yeah. So let's knock ourselves out. This is what true autonomy looks like, people.
Yay, yay, I want that. No, not really. Well, anyway, so that means we also need to talk about teams and roles and resources, of course, right? Do you love being called a resource? It's probably the most hated word in the industry, well, when it comes to us developers, right? So let's have a little chat about teams and things like that. So if you look into what usually people do on Agile project, basically on Scrum projects, is they say, well, Scrum says, and they change it every 5 years, right? Because Scrum has 5-year iterations of evolving. And they sort of change it like, well, it used to be like 7 plus or minus 2, and then it was 6 plus or minus 3. And I think now the current Scrum guide says something, well, teams can be under 10 people. It could be 2, could be 3, could be 10. And the problem is, that doesn't really cut it, right? Because, well, there's lots of stuff you need to do. So if you look into other agile methodologies, like the enterprise-y agile methodologies, which are not really agile at all, but they have lots and lots of roles, right? So you need to figure out, this is, for instance, from discipline agile, so these are not even the people in the team, right? These are the people around the team. So that means you need at least like 40 people to deliver one line of code, I guess. So that's cool, right? So you need to keep all these roles in, right? And then if you look into, well, other stuff, this is actually from 2016, right? In 2016, this big consultancy firm called Accenture, they made up this, right? This is even worse than, I would say, than SAFe. Is anybody in a SAFe project? Oh dear, too many people. Well, it's like 6, but it's still too many people, right? So let's do something about SAFe as well, right? So we're going to do let's say our annual quiz about SAFe. And the question is, in that quiz, where is the customer? So I'm going to show you a picture, which is basically one of the previous versions of SAFe, and you have to point out where the customer is, right? Here it comes. So this is the picture. Well, where's the customer? Well, it's that little small icon here on the right. It's that little person, that poor person that's been hit by a train. It's just, this is SAFe for you, right? So actually SAFe has lots of iterations because there's now version 5 or is there 6 already? I don't know actually. I kind of lost track. Well, Agile release track, no, bad joke, I know. And so the next thing is that, well, of course, basically what managers tend to do is, well, they refer to us developers as resources, right? So you know what? We'll just call ourselves resources anyway because they do that anyway. By the way, if you want to be a true resource, you have to grow a beard. So yeah, no, I'm good. So, and then the next question is, do we need agile coaches? Because I see lots and lots of job openings for agile coaches and Scrum Mastery people. And the good thing about becoming a Scrum Master is you can do a 2-day training course, or even just skip it, do a 30-question multiple choice thing, and then you're a Scrum Master, which means you can solve all the problems in the world, because you're the expert in the 14-page booklet. And then you go into project and you make up stuff. And then these agile coaches, they have their own conferences. You probably don't know that as a developer, but these people have their own conferences as well, right? Not as big as this one, of course, but it's, well, they do. And then they go into retreats and stuff. And they're like, yeah, we really enjoyed the first Obeya Knowledge Network meetup in Amsterdam. The first Obeya Knowledge Network meetup. I have really no idea what this is, but then again, I'm just a developer. Or they go to a conference called Play, and they play, right? They bring Lego, and then they go play. It's really close to writing code, I guess. Not, probably. And then they say, well, yeah, we have, oh wait, this is a terrible quote, actually. So they have like, day 1 was packed with learning moments, games, and exercises to help us understand the essence of flow. I didn't make this up, right? This is true, actually. And then they have like liberating structures. They have all sorts of ways of doing retrospectives. Do you like retrospectives? Yeah, you do? Oh. That means we have to keep them in, right? I've done so many of them that I sort of started to dislike them, because why only have a moment to retrospect every month or every 2 weeks when you can do that every day, right? It's shorter iterations, small, faster feedback, right? And so they have all these nice techniques, like they have the appreciative interviews. I have no idea what it is. Or generative relationships. Do you know what it is? Or generative, whatever is that. Or the 15% solutions, that's what we built, right? Conversation cafe. Like you can only have conversations in the cafe, and outside you don't talk to each other, I guess, right? So what is all this stuff? And the only question I have with it, where is my code, right? I came into this industry to write code, and I still do. And the rest of it, yeah, well.
You don't care. Yeah, so what we also need is a collaboration mindset. So the question we asked ourselves is, are we going to keep DevOps because it removed silos and it may be more efficient, which we don't want, remember? But yes, definitely, we're going to keep DevOps. Why? Because we can have endless conversations about the order in which we put the acronyms. So this is on the internet. So actually, we don't need DevOps, we need OpsDev. And we can have a conversation about that because we need to front-load Ops. Because in the end, running your application is more important than changing it. So we want to make that clear in the order of words. And we can now go beyond, because security also really matters in this era. So there's this guy who wrote, like, I want SecDev SecOpsSec. Because, well, I don't need to explain, this makes sense, right? No, I do. So he says, well, security is important at the beginning, and security is also important while you are writing code, and security is important when you're running your application. So that's why we need this. And I really had to try and learn how to pronounce this. So go ahead, look in the mirror and look pretty in this way. So yeah, but he does allow us to standardize, luckily, on SecDevOps. So he thinks that starting with security is in the end the most important thing. But then the question we asked ourselves is, where are the poor analysts? Because they also really matter. Where are the testers and where are the project managers?
Well, you first have to look into where DevOps actually comes from, right?
Yes, that's on the next slide. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So we looked at where did DevOps actually come from, and it was coined by Patrick Dubois. He is a Belgian guy, and he actually picked DevOps Days, which is another conference, because he wanted to see, well, we see development becoming more and more agile, and then operations need to really match this need for speed and this adoption of change late in the process. So at that moment, it was like 2006, you had to say what kind of infrastructure resources you need, like the amount of disk space and processing, before you started writing code. And we don't always know that beforehand. And he saw that and he thought, well, let's do a system administration conference about how to match the agility that we're seeing on development side.
That sounds like fun.
And that actually was a good idea. So what he did is, well, he wanted to name it Agile System Administration Conference, but that was really literally too long to fit on stickers. He had the same issue we had, why we named it Flow, right? So he named it DevOps Days. And there was never a grand plan for DevOps as a word. So we definitely want to keep some kind of collaboration mindset because we can have all these discussions. So Flow's collaboration mindset, we thought long and hard about it. So we thought, well, let's not just do biz DevOps, but let's do community because we want to really be inclusive to everybody. We want to keep development because we think that in the end, writing software still is a part of software development. We want operations. Because we have to run the application, we want analysts and we want security. So there will be ComDevOps anal sex.
I can definitely sell that to managers, I think, right?
Yes. I always see everybody look so happy when I say that.
It's like
I don't know why. Please enlighten me. So, but in the end, well, we're being called resources anyway, so we really went for the short version, RES.
Yeah. Well, that's a bummer. Bad joke again. Well, anyway, so then we have to look into meetings, right? Because you know what? If you really want to make your projects look longer, you need to do lots and lots of meetings, right? I guess, well, since you like retrospectives, you probably all like other meetings as well. Do you like to meetings all day? You can be honest, right? Your manager's not here, probably. But So we have to talk about different kinds of meetings that we can have, right? Like the first thing is stand-ups, right? Of course, we all do stand-ups, and actually, what time is it? My team is actually now just starting their stand-up in 2 minutes, literally. And usually they don't start without me, which is really cute, because that means today they're going to be stuck in the stand-up for the rest of the day, right?
You should enter the stand-up.
I should have told them I'm not there, right?
It's
like, yeah, okay. We could do the stand-up live on stage here, right? They would be like terrified, I guess. But so yeah, they're okay, right? Stand-up. So the good thing is, if you've done them for 20 years, which I have, they become excruciatingly boring. Because it's like every year, like, yeah, I'm working on that, and we never finish anything. We're always thought like, yes, I'm working on this, and it's almost done. I only need to finish one more thing, and then it's done. Right? Do you have that in stand-up meetings? I have people on my team who do this every day, right? And they never sort of get beyond that point, I think. Well, I hope they don't hear this actually, but no. They know I think that. But so yeah, we all love them, right? True, we do. And it's good because you know what? If you do this every day, you basically break the flow of your developers. Because here's the point. And that's why I told you that the stand-up in my team actually starts at 9:30 every day. I have people on my team who come in at they don't always come in because we work in a hybrid mode, right? So they work partly from home and partly at the office. And some of them start at 7 in the morning. Some of them start at 9 in the morning. Some of them start at 11 in the morning even and then go on until eternity, or just work shorter days. But the thing is, any point in time that you can pick for your stand-up is breaking flow, because there are people who were already working and they just got into flow, and I'll talk a little about this thing about flow in a sec, and they'll just have to break flow, right? Oh, shit. I have literally a guy on my team, Nafal, really nice guy, great architect, and he's like, guys, please wake me up 1 minute before the stand-up begins, because if I'm writing code already, I don't notice. I have the same actually, right? It's like, oh, it's 9:45. Shit, I should have been in the stand-up meeting 15 minutes ago. And if you're in flow, you break your flow. And to get back into flow, it actually takes time, right? So this is good to have them you probably should have them in the middle of the day, because then you're pretty sure that will break your flow. So what not to like about stand-ups? Well, basically, from a point of consultancy perspective, they are useful, right? Because you do share with other people where you are. And I love sharing where my other people, so we can see what's going on. We can see where the problems are. So that is especially what you don't want being a consultant, right? Because you want the problems to be hidden for as long as possible. So they come up late in the project and they explode in your face, right? That's the good thing. So for that reason, we do them far too often. So we should do less of them, because basically we don't want our resources to know what the other resources are doing, right? So, because, then they might help each other and the project takes shorter. You don't want that, right? So we should do them less often. So I think we should start doing them once a week. We actually both worked in a company where we tried to get the management team to do stand-ups as well, instead of have their weekly day-long management meetings, which were really, really boring. I usually skipped them or switched up my laptop and just typed away. And then, so with regular stand-ups, we should have them once a week, right? And they should last for at least 1 hour, maybe longer even probably, because, you know what, we'll just plan them every Tuesday from 9 to 1, so people really don't know what they do the rest of the week, and we can sit in the office for 4 hours doing basically nothing or meeting stuff, right? And then there's the retrospective, of course. We need to talk a little bit about retrospectives, but since you like them, actually, I'll try to be a little bit more careful about them, right? So, we do them once a month, basically, if you have month-long iterations, which is kind of okay, because it only allows you to reflect on how good or bad you're doing as a team once a month, right? So the less often you get feedback on how you work as a team, the better it is for the consultants, so we can make more money because the project lasts longer. Normally, you would say everything that is quite a bit off, or we don't like the way we work, just do it directly, right? That is what I would like to do as a developer, right? I would like to get the feedback all the time, right? Instead of waiting for a month to be able to say, listen, I really think that we shouldn't use Jira anymore, or we should do this, or we should do that, or maybe we should extend our pipeline to include Sonar, whatever, right? Let's wait a month until we say that, right? That makes pretty good sense. So, and then of course, there's always the demo effect. You've all done this, right? You've all prepared demos for meetings, right? And then you get to the meeting and you spend 2 days on preparing the demo, and then you get to the meeting and two things happen. First of all, they get pushed out of the agenda. So you're just sitting there waiting, I finally can do the demo that I've been working on for a couple of days, and then the agenda is full, and they say, we'll do the demo next time. Have you had that? I've had that, actually. And the second thing is you can actually spend a lot of time on doing a demo instead of doing actual work. So yes, demos are a required thing in Flow. We need them all the time, right? And then the retrospectives, we can just discuss forever and ever how good or bad we are doing, and then usually we don't do anything about it whatsoever. So you get to the next retrospective in about a month, and you have the same things, right? Yeah, we really should work more together on this. We really should get more focus into what we're doing. Yeah, we should. Everybody agrees. Nobody does anything, right? I've been there for years, right? It doesn't really work. So yes, we need to keep them, but we need to do them more regularly, right? And then the thing is, we don't do the actual improvements, just what I said, right? Because Yeah, who does that anyway, right? Just nice sitting, we sit together, we do a demo or not, and then, yeah. Demos usually fail, by the way, because they always do. But oh yeah, of course we need a Lego reference in every talk, so here's your Lego reference. Now the thing is, every meeting that you can do breaks your flow as a developer. We all know that, right? And the thing is, there's research being done. So the research says, basically, a programmer takes between 20 to 50 minutes to start editing code after resuming work from an interruption. So let's say you have like 2-3 meetings every day. That almost takes you about an hour to get back into flow. You'll recognize that probably, right? It's like when you start in the morning, you switch up your laptop and you start thinking a little bit, and then slowly at some point in time you start, oh yeah, maybe if I do this, I write a test here, do that, blah, blah, blah. And you get into flow. And your mind sort of wanders away. And that's a lovely state to be in. That's basically why I'm in this, in being a software developer. I like to be in that state. I'm totally not aware of my surroundings anymore, right? And then, if you break that, if you're like, oh, you have a stand-up meeting, oh, you have a meeting, a retrospective, or whatever meeting, it breaks, and it takes about 10 to 50 minutes to get back into where you were before, into your happy place, as I call it. So that's the thing, right? We should break flow all the time. Right? This is what we really need to do. So we'll organize random meetings. We're not going to tell anybody. I have a manager who does it. Like they say, yeah, we have a meeting tomorrow morning. What? It wasn't on my agenda. I was doing other stuff. Yeah, but now we have a meeting tomorrow morning. What about? Yeah, this important thing. What important thing? And then, well, there goes your flow again, right? Even preparing for meetings takes you away from the flow. So we do random meetings throughout the week in regular topics like whatever is there, right? Like design or UX meetings or meetings with the customer or with the customer service team. They want to get feedback on what you're building, etc., etc. Just organize meetings, right? So they'll break your flow. By the way, they also at least have to last for an hour, even if you can do them in 15 minutes, or even if they could have been an email, just organize the meeting because it will break your flow all the time.
Great.
Right?
Yes. And you have one more line.
Oh, one more line.
Yeah.
What? Oh, yeah, of course, everybody needs to be there, even if they're not involved in whatsoever, right?
Yes. Just
and on Teams,
everybody.
because Teams always fails.
Yeah. So we'll be making a lot of money with what we already gathered, but there's still something that we can make even more money with, and that is actually flow in the enterprise, because that's where the real money is. The question we first have to answer is, does Agile, or basically Scrum, because Scrum is Agile these days,
yes.
Does it scale? So will every team just have its mini instance of Scrum, and can we just scale that? Or do we need something on top of that? Well, if you want to make money, the answer is yes. Does large-scale Agile actually require a large-scale process?
Sure.
Well, yes, of course. Because Agile is about continuously adapting to change, and this system will definitely help you to become more agile and responsive to change and adopt changes late in the process. Has anybody ever tried to change an item that was already in the PI planning and not got fired? Oh yes, the hands just went down again, you see? No, I mean, it's hard. Actually, you have to make a convincing statement about it, and you have to sell it. And Agile was about lightweight change approval process and about lightweight response to change, actually. So somehow I'm sometimes confused. So we definitely need to keep that, because everything that's confusing will be confusing for the customer as well.
Yes.
What we're going to do is also just all copy Spotify. Because, well, basically they have a nice structure that takes a long time to actually understand, so that's good. So we want tribes, product owners, chapters with chapter leads, guilds, squads. Anybody here in a Spotify project? Ah, yes. And you all
That's
are
even more
working,
than safe, right?
You're all working at Spotify then, right? You're not.
Or in a company that grows as fast as Spotify?
So you're doing the Spotify model, but you're not working at Spotify. Well, so I was at this company who copied Spotify, Big Bang. I see it's also here. It has orange lions. And they copied Spotify, and they installed all these chapter leads, but they also kept all the layers of management, because you don't want to fire the management, because those are the people who actually decide on this thing. And the thing here is, do you know why the Spotify model was invented? At that moment, Spotify was growing 8x every year, 800%.
And that was in 2014, right? So
it means that if you're in a team with 10 people, and you were there last year, the rest of the team wasn't. They entered the company in that year. And because of that context, because they were growing at an outrageous amount, they had a 1-to-2 ratio of managers versus direct reports.
Oui.
So every manager had only 2 people, because onboarding people in the company and explaining the culture, explaining the values was so important because they were growing at a crazy rate. So all the people who are doing the Spotify model, is your company growing 8x per year? If it isn't, then probably this is not the best model. And even on top of that, even though there was already a 1-to-2 ratio, they added all the management layers on top of it.
Yeah.
So that means that you're really being micromanaged in Spotify. Spotify these days is not growing 8x, and they are not doing this model anymore. They evolved. They adopted a new model because that was more suitable.
Yeah.
And so should you.
So this is bank, by the way.
Yes. So we're definitely gonna keep this, and we're gonna introduce Big Flow Framework. It's short in BFF. We already found a lot of people tweeting about it. And we're gonna start with version 3.0,
Yes.
because that's also where management 3.0, sociocracy 3. There is no version 1 or 2, but we really like that.
3 is always good. Right?
It feels really advanced.
If you ever release software, just name it version 3 and people will adopt it automatically, right?
So, and we're going to add more complexity with every release, just like Safe, because then we can train people in it and make more money again.
Oh, yes.
And of course, we also copy Spotify, just like everybody. And we also copy Basecamp, like startups, because, well, then you always get the attention of people like, hey, I don't know that. I know Spotify, but please explain me. So we like that, right?
Yeah. So the next thing is, we need to talk about tooling. Because tooling makes the world run, right? It's not us, it's the tooling that makes the project work. So as long as you use Jira, your project will be fine, right? That's basically the point of doing Agile, I think, is to be able to allow you to do Jira, right? And resolve tickets. No, we're not building software, we're resolving tickets or issues, or for that matter, it's probably the same thing, right? So let's talk a little bit about all this tooling that we have on Agile project. This is an actual board from an Agile project. Of course, this is an Agile board from an Agile project from a really large consultancy firm. And I just walked by their stand in the lobby. I should probably say this right. I also worked for them for almost a decade. So this is actual thing, right? This is, yeah, we're doing lots of Agile stuff, and this is the way we plan it. I'm like, what? I don't have that. So why do we need it? Well, basically, we're a consultancy, so we employ people who make these boards. That is good, right? That's a cool way to make money, actually, I think. So we should keep them in, right? And then the thing is, I think if we are going to do boards, we'll need to extend them to as much as we can, right? So really, basically, if you look at this board, I have really no idea what the progress in this project is. Well, there's lots of green smileys and yellow ones and some red ones. So that means we're probably sort of on track, I think, maybe. So well, it confuses people, right? And that's the whole point of having all these boards, exactly, right? So then, so we require in Flow for you to have every board to have at least 20 columns. So to do in progress done is not good. You need to identify 70 more, one of which will be ready for celebration. And one of the other ones should be we buy cake, something like that, or beer, whatever.
Put the champagne in the freezer.
No, I prefer beer, actually, but yeah, okay. And then, so that means in Enterprise Flow, if you do the Enterprise variant of Flow, it means you need to have a room. Some people call it an Abea room, we just call it a boardroom, because basically, well, what do you do in a boardroom anyway, right? Nobody understands that anyway. So, and then there's, of course, Jira. So I'm fortunate to say that we've signed up with Atlassian recently, and now Jira is mandatory in Flow projects, but it was there in every Agile project in the world whatsoever anyway, right? And we really like Jira, of course, a lot, because it allows us to spend a lot of time tinkering the really hideous user interface of this particular tool. So yes, and by the way, so if you do Jira, you're doing Agile, right? So every project manager that comes along says, yeah, do you have Jira? And you say, yes. And then you say, oh, you must be doing Agile. I've actually had this conversation, no kidding. So yeah, so that's it. So we make it mandatory. I'm sorry to say, also, by the way, there's 2 variations of it. You have Scrum boards and you have Kanban boards. They're exactly the same, by the way, but there's some underlying mechanism that seems to be different. But then configuring Jira, well, you can actually get certified in that, basically. So, well, you hire a Jira consultant, so it makes the project even more expensive, right? That's good. So we're going to provide Jira consultancy, I guess, right?
Sure.
Yeah, we should, right? So yeah, that's it. And then we use epics and stories and tasks and everything you can think of as a unit of work that you can possibly imagine and put it on the board and smash them all together and then see what comes out. Well, basically nothing. Oh, by the way, and then you need to have issues and, of course, tickets. Because we work on tickets, right? We don't build software, we work on tickets. I find that a really sort of degrading way to describe our work, basically. So, and then, of course, we go estimate stuff. And that is because we're so good at it that we estimate everything in the amount of working time. And the problem with these estimates is they become deadlines all of a sudden, right? Somebody asks you, so how long does it take? And you say, well, probably about 8, whatever, right? 8 story points of XL t-shirt sizing of just hours or whatever you do. And then the manager says, okay, so 8 hours, so that means it's done tomorrow. And like, no, that's not exactly well, you said 8 hours, right? Yeah, but that's on average? Yeah, well, so on average you're done tomorrow, which means you're done tomorrow. And this happens at every level, right? And I don't really get this, but we do this all the time. And by the way, you put all your requirements and all your design also in Jira or on Confluence, so actually nobody can ever find it back again, and you have to redo all of the work. Well, I see you smell you, so you recognize that, right? You don't know probably where you put your requirements yesterday even, right? And then there's all these boards that show progress or not progress, and so you need a chart. So at some point in time, somebody invented the burn down chart, right? That's basically the chart I'd show you. The problem only is projects never have any progress whatsoever. So we just rephrase it to say it's a burn chart, which basically means you burn loads of money and you don't have any progress whatsoever. I'll actually show you one. This is an actual chart from an actual project that we both were in, right? I think, yeah. So this is an interesting graph. This is taken from Jira, of course, and it basically says, well, you know what? The story points we resolve, so the work that's done, it actually grows. So we actually deliver stuff. The only problem is that the story points remaining, it's sort of, well, it has sort of like a flat line, or actually it's growing, which means this project is never going to come to an end. Why do we do this all the time? And we actually do, right? So the next thing we need to have is open floor plans, because yes, we're always able to focus on an open floor plan. Luckily, we're all spent time at home in the last couple of years. But when you go back to the office, please be aware that they're open offices, so nobody can concentrate anymore. That's why all our people, all our resources, are required to wear noise-canceling headphones. So if I talk to the person next to me, this has actually happened to me 2 days ago, like I say, Nafal, and I actually have to knock on his desk to make him, what? And then he puts off his headphone and he's out of flow. We break the flow. It's really, really handsome. By the way, you need to have, to become an actual resource in flow, you need to have tattoos on your underarms, right? So, but these days everybody has them anyway, so that's not a point. And then we started, well, how can we isolate people more? So we went into VR. And AR and stuff, it didn't really work. People couldn't read their code anymore, so we skipped this thing. And then we need Slack, of course, right? And Slack is another very interesting thing to spend time on, because, well, you can have as many channels as you want. Nobody knows in how many channels they are. There's messages popping up, especially when you have your deployments automatically message you in whatever channel there is. And everybody, well, it's I love communicating on Slack because it takes most of my day, actually. And then you can do pair slacking instead of pair programming, which is a really good technique. And we have one Slack channel per release, of one per monitoring tool that endlessly puts up messages there which nobody reads because there are too many of them. So yes, Slack is a really good thing to do, right?
Yeah, definitely. We made an inventory the other day about the amount of Slack channels we had because we wanted to consolidate
You
them.
did?
So we spend a lot of time on that. That's good.
Wow.
So we had like 50 or something for only our team.
Per person, right?
So, and one thing that is still really lacking is, of course, a manifesto.
Yes.
Yes, definitely we need a manifesto. So the history of a manifesto is actually, it's a published verbal declaration of the intentions, motives, and views of the issuer. So they actually have a view, they have an opinion, and they explain it to you in that manifesto. If you look at manifestos these days, they just have 4 lines. I think the Agile Manifesto really started that movement. So Agile software development basically says, well, you know this one, right?
Sure.
It says, that is, while there is value on the items on the right, So yes, there is value on the items of the right, but I think that the last sentence is like too far down the page or something. People don't really read that. People say, well, we don't do documentation because we are in an agile project.
Yeah.
It doesn't say so. It says working software over comprehensive documentation. Documentation really helps. So, so we value the items on the left more. So if we have to choose between documentation and working software, we choose working software. If we have to choose using interactions between people or processes and tools, we choose the interactions. It doesn't mean we don't have processes. It doesn't mean we don't have contracts and we don't have a plan. We still do. Who has been in an agile project with no idea where you're going? You're just working through tickets. And how satisfactory is that? I want to know where I'm going. I want to know where the sun is. Like, hey, I can help you actually steer in that direction. So that is the Agile Manifesto. And then it was a trend because a lot of people copied it. This is the software craftsman proposition. It doesn't even have other pages. It just has 4 lines because that's easy to write down. And this is the Agile HR Manifesto.
Yeah, transparency over secrecy. That's cool.
Wow.
So that means you still have secrecy.
Yeah, because we still value the items on the right, right? No,
so it means you're not really transparent, but you pretend to be, right?
Ambition over obligation.
Yeah.
Ah, cool. And then this was a response. Programming motherfucker, do you speak at manifesto?
Yes.
So
this is my favorite, actually.
It basically says, we're fed up on being humiliated, and we really want to do it differently. So stop telling us what to do and give us true autonomy and true freedom because we know what we're doing. Trust us. That's what this manifesto says. So yeah, definitely we also need a manifesto.
Yes.
So what we have is extensive certification over hands-on experience. Copying methodologies over thinking for yourself.
Yeah.
Tool-driven confusion over building working software.
Yeah, who needs that anyway, right?
Yeah, and it makes the project last longer.
Yes.
Endless meetings over focused flow. And we want mandatory gamification over authentic autonomy. And that is, while we ignore the things on the right, we do the things on the left, just to be really clear about it. And then we came to think like, yeah, we can call this a manifest because, well, that's what the rest calls them. But we really want to follow the trend, so we want to call it a microfest because it's short anyway. And we're following really the trend of micro here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the thing, of course, us consultants make the most money with, it's called certification. Certification, who of you is certified in anything? Not a lot, that's good. I like that. But I only have my swimming diplomas, I guess. But
people don't dare to say anymore.
No, they
right?
don't speak up anymore,
they
right?
just stopped.
I don't know why, but it's like people... Yeah, anyway, so we thought, well, we should have certification as well, right? Because, well, that's where the money basically is, right? And if you look at something like, well, let's say karate, for instance, right? So if you do martial arts and you do karate, and before you become a master at karate, I'm always asking Kim because she used to be the Dutch champion in karate for a long time. But so how many years of practice and how many hours per day or a week?
I practiced like 24 hours per week.
24 hours per week?
Years and years, yeah.
How many years?
12 or something, I guess.
Wow. And are you a master at that stuff?
Well, not anymore.
Not anymore, right?
I got old.
Beer got in the way, I guess.
Yeah.
Lots of other stuff. So that's the point, right? To become a true master at something, you need to practice it. Like Malcolm Gladwell says, you need at least 10,000 hours of practice before you're actually good at something, right? I tried to learn how to play the guitar. I didn't spend enough time. My kids do. They play guitar much, much better than I do. The problem is, with Scrum specifically, without bashing Scrum, but I don't like the certification thing, is that you can become a Scrum Master following a 2-day training course, or even just skip it, do the exam, bam, and you're a Scrum Master. And you're actually hired to solve all the problems in the company. So that means even if you don't understand a single thing about what software development is, you can be the master in the project to solve all the problems. And by the way, if you are the certification industry, you can make lots of money. They actually invent new certifications all the time. Just go to the scrum.org website or any of the other certification websites, and you'll see certifications that weren't there half a year ago. So you can become an agile project manager these days, right? That's the thing. So we thought we'll do certification as well, because, well, certification makes you lots and lots of money, right? So, well, that means you actually can become a certified flow resource.
And we have T-shirts.
And we have T-shirts. Well, we have them, right?
Yeah.
We had them printed last time we were at a conference. So in our courses, what you learn is, of course, the basic things you need to do when you become agile is learn how to rip off Post-its properly, which is actually a thing in lots of training courses. Learn how to move items on a Jira board, and most importantly, you learn how to decorate your workspace. That's the crucial part about things. And then we thought, well, 2-day courses, isn't that too much? What if we could just do it in a 1-hour keynote? We'll teach you everything in a 1-hour keynote, which you just have, and then you can become a Flow certified resource as well. So that's when we decided to have a certification exam. And we're now going to take the exam. So you can all call yourself, if you pass the exam, a Flow certified resource.
Yes.
Or certified Flow resource. So we have a bunch of questions for you, right?
First question, just write down the answer yourself, right? So what roles do we have in Flow? A manager, project manager, and a product owner. Or is it we are all one team? Or lots and lots, except for testers, and resources. This is a hard one.
Yeah, tough question, right? So think about it for a bit, so we'll come up with question 2. And question 2 is, what is the goal for retrospectives in Flow? And the first answer, A, will be, well, to interrupt the daily flow of our resources, of course. B, to endlessly discuss why the resources in our project should work harder, and they should. And C is to make sure we spend 2 days preparing demos. And answer D is to watch demos fail together with our clients.
Yes. You wrote it down, right? Last question. So why do we have certification in Flow? Well, we want well-trained resources in our projects. So that's why we do a 1-hour training. It makes our methodology look important.
It does.
Flow is so complicated, you need lots and lots of training to become an expert. Or we want to make money.
Oh, that's a toughie, right?
Yeah.
So I hope we're going to now show the right answers, right? So see if you can all become a certified Flow resource. And the answer is that all of these answers were correct. That means whatever answer you chose, you are now, if you want it or not, a certified Flow resource. Congratulations, you all, right? So here's the certificate, by the way, so you can make a picture of it and print it out at home and put your name in it. So it's really flexible.
Version.
I have the wrong version. So it had the version with Devoxx on it, and we did open the wrong version this morning, right? So
yeah.
no, but.
They already read it.
Yeah, we have to make some money, right? So
it's like 200 euros per. I think we can go on holiday again.
Yeah, we should, right? So yeah, that's the whole point. Right. So no, just kidding. We're going to show you a little bit of what we truly believe, right? So apart from all the thing about Flow, but this is what we actually believe. So we believe basically that software is built by people, right? It's not the tools, it's not the processes, it's not the big frameworks, it's not the managers, it's us. Right? The devs, the testers, the QAs, the UX designers, we built the software. That means human interaction is crucial. Right?
Definitely. And we also believe that every organization or team will create and evolve the approach that fits them best. So don't copy any of the methodologies that are out there. You can use them as inspiration. It's good to read up about it. But Agile is about continuous improvement. And a Scrum guide that is immutable, it actually says so in the Scrum guide, can never be something that allows you to continuously improve yourself, as do copying any of the methodologies of another company. You have to think about it yourself. You have to think like, what could help us make our work more fun, speed us up, make our quality better, and do those things. Experiment with them, learn from them.
True. Yes, and so personal communication is key, right? So I really like working with my team. Well, if I'm in the office, I was in the office 2 days ago with most of my team. It's voluntary for them to come in, but when we do, you see the energy flow out, right? You see the synchronization. You see people wanting to work together. And so we write code together most of the day, also when we're working remotely, by the way. But so the basic thing is to talk to somebody is so much more powerful than to send them a Slack message or an email or whatever impersonal ways of communication you can have. So I recommend to just talk to people, right?
Definitely. And also, trust and personal safety really rule. So the way we are hurting people by telling them sprint after sprint, you're not good enough because you missed your estimations, you didn't finish your work, it's hurting people.
Yep.
It's not allowing them to thrive and to be at their best. So how can you change that and really allow people to feel trusted and to feel an expert? Because what you will see is that people become more motivated, become having more fun, and in the end it's also really healthy for people, and it's the way we should act with people. So think about how you can add that to your teams.
Yeah, really sure. And by the way, writing software is the most difficult thing in the world. It requires so much of your mind, and it is so complicated. Well, mostly we cannot do it on our own, but it does require focus and flow. It does mean you have to be allowed to go off and work somewhere and sit somewhere and do the thing, preferably with somebody else, but not always. But be allowed to focus and be allowed not to break your flow throughout the day in stupid meetings, whatever you have, right?
And continuous learning is essential. So learning, the teams who are able to learn best will become the best performing teams in the future, because tech is evolving so quickly that if you are not able to learn as fast as your competitors, you will lose out. So, and what is required to learn in your teams is that they're not under stress every day and every hour. If you want some time to learn, you have to create headspace. You have to create safety and time to actually do that. It doesn't just come out of the box together with meeting the most crucial deadlines.
True. Yeah. And then, well, in the end, if you really do this, and I'm actually trying that with the teams I work with, is to make them as much autonomous as they can, right? And when I went in my current team, people said, so what do you want us to do? Do you want us to do this or this? And I'm like, well, what do you think is most important? And they're like, well, but you're the CTO, right? And I said, yes, but it's your work, right? Why would I have to decide on that? So I try to put everything in the team, because teams that have the autonomy, they become much more responsive and responsible for what they're doing, meaning they create better software. And that was the point that I tried to do, right? So we give them as much autonomy as we can. Right? So there's basically in my teams, there's no rules. We don't have sprints, we don't have retros, we don't have estimations, we don't have a planning, just a roadmap, and we all can do work, and there's no code ownership. All this stuff goes away, right? And you become better at it.
Yeah, and closely related, that also means that organizations need to be flat with as little hierarchy as possible. Because you can never really get self-organization and ask teams to do autonomous choices if there is all these layers of hierarchy, and if people are worried about end of the year, what will my manager say in my appraisal? It shouldn't be your manager who judges you, it should be the team, because they know what you did and you work as a team. Yep. So you need to really evolve your organization to allow this. Yeah,
and this is, to me, as an old man, right? And I think that experience really counts, right? I actually like working with my team because I can actually teach them things, not from a teacher-student mode, but from working together, right? Like paired programming, I have somebody else drive it, and I'm just saying, oh, maybe we try this, or try this, and try this. And it actually, for me, it's quite fun to be able to share that knowledge and experience mostly, because I don't have a lot of knowledge, but a lot of experience I do have. And it is so much more to be able to have these experienced with non-experienced people in the team and mix it up all the time. It is so much better, right? And then, of course, well, this is probably the most important thing. This is why I'm in this industry, right? We should never not have fun. Well, it doesn't mean you have mandatory fun, like with balls in the room and stuff like that. But it is a fun thing to do. And you should never stop learning, right?
Yeah, when you don't have fun, something's off and work on it.
Yeah.
That's all we have.
that's all we have for today. That's all the time we have for today, too. So thank you very much for being here. And I do hope that you enjoy the rest of Devoxx tremendously.